Welcome to Dr. Cindy Speaks, regular musings and reflections on politics, current events. Dr. Cindy Banyai is a mom and small business owner fighting for our water, our health, our community. She's running for the people of Southwest Florida, trying to flip Florida 19 from red to blue. Listen as she speaks truth to power.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dr. Cindy Speaks. I'm your host, Dr. Cindy Banyai, right here on the Big Mouth Media Network. And today we're going to have a really amazing conversation with Chris Wills. Hi, Chris. How's it going?
What's up, everyone? Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yes. So, I fully understand that most people aren't super duper political wonks like me. That's why I do this show. So I talk about it and I can help explain and shed some light on all the different things that are happening here in the state of Florida. So one of the things that actually got accomplished in this year's legislative session, knowing that the main thing, their job to make a budget has not been completed and that there actually might be a government shutdown. I literally just got that text message from Florida Politics. Because I can't agree on a budget, but that's not why we're here. One thing that they actually did was help to push through Ron DeSantis' super authoritarian agenda, which part of which came through a bill called HB House Bill 1205, which was sponsored by Jenna Persons Malika. Jenna Persons Malika is my representative, my Florida House representative, I know, right here in Fort Myers. But I'm running against her, but we're not going to talk about that today. But so she helped to usher in this extremist law that, in my opinion, basically kills our ability, especially for grassroots organizations, to get citizen ballot initiatives out into the public and onto the ballot. But so even though that thing is happening and Ron DeSantis signed it within the hour, that does not mean folks in the state of Florida are just going to take it. So that is why we have Chris Wills here. He is going to tell us about the initiative that he is leading across the state of Florida. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about this thing you're doing.
Thank you so much. You literally summed it up perfectly. The only thing I'll say is that I'm not leading it. It's literally folks from all over the state. And we're even finding it's cutting across partisan lines. Folks are realizing what you said, that this is an authoritarian takeover of our constitutional First Amendment rights to have direct democracy in Florida's Constitution. It gives us, the citizens, the power to collect petitions and put good ideas on the ballot and let voters decide. Unfortunately, because Amendments 3 and 4 got so close last cycle, unfortunately, DeSantis and Representative Persons Malika and all their little minions, unfortunately, mostly on the Republican side, there was one NPA who was a former Democrat, Jason Pizzo, who decided to also vote in favor of this bill, which was mind-blowing to me that he would do that. They basically made this, I would say, their top priority this past legislative session, right? They worked on
why would this be a top priority? And I just want to say, for those of us who, like I said, not everybody's going to be super political, but Amendment 3 and 4, those were the adult recreational cannabis ballot initiative to amend the Constitution, as well as the abortion access amendment. Those were the two. And they're still steeped in controversy as to how those got defeated, right? So and this House Bill 1205 is an attack on that because of True Leave, who was a major sponsor of the adult recreational cannabis, and they paid a lot of money to get their stuff in order super fast, right? Whereas the abortion initiative, although it was funded, had more of a grassroots effort to it. But the House Bill 1205 addresses how those things were done in particular. And then, of course, there's the Hope Florida controversy, which is going through, which, Ron DeSantis green-lighted the moving of $10 million that was supposed to be for Medicaid into Hope Florida, and then was funneled to PACs that were running anti-cannabis ads. So anyway, just a little recap on what those are. But so here we are. So House Bill 1205 passed, and we have this major attack on our rights. So what are you doing?
So in essence, because they were working on this entire legislative session, it gave us the opportunity to see that this was coming early on and see how bad it was going to be from early on. So immediately at the beginning of legislative session, started talking to folks about what would be the best way to stop this, and was seeing very clearly that despite good Democrats in Tallahassee trying to fight for our constitutional rights, pointing out again that they're not doing it because they're Democrats, but because this should be nonpartisan and they want to defend the rights that are spelled out in our state constitution for all of us. But seeing that they were not likely to be able to be successful in stopping this legislation, that they were very dead set on getting passed and ramming through in one way or another, I went ahead and spoke to folks and found that the best solution was to beat them at their own game, right? So we basically filed we filed a petition with the Florida Division of Elections to put an amendment on the 2026 ballot that would completely counter and strike through every restriction that they've just signed into law, along with all of the other restrictions that they've put in over the years in state statute, as well as any restriction that has been approved administerially by the Florida Division of Elections. So the amendment says very clearly, right, the ballot title will be Protect Voters' Constitutional Power. And it says simply that this citizens initiative process should have no restriction on it unless we, the citizens, approve it ourselves through the constitutional amendment process, or if it's already in the Constitution. There are a number of provisions and restrictions that are already in the state constitution. We believe that those restrictions are pretty much good enough. We don't need all this other red tape that they've built up over the years, but we certainly cannot sit silently as this mountain of restrictions are going to be put on the process. And I will say, there's a lot of folks that are saying, well, this is only going to affect grassroots efforts. First of all, that's the effort that we should be protecting the most, right? Because according to Persons Malaka, according to DeSantis, what they're trying to do is to keep out special interests. But in fact, what they're doing is making sure that only special interests would have the most likely ability to get something on the ballot, if at all. And my contention is that it's going to be almost impossible for anything that the sitting governor, whether Republican, Democrat, or otherwise, right? Because right now there's Republicans in control, but they need to remember that that will not always be the case, right? And that's why this is not partisan. So whoever the sitting governor is, whoever's got control of the Florida House and Senate, if they don't agree with a citizens initiative, they will have the tools to stop it with what's in this bill. Because one of the provisions that a lot of people are not paying attention to is that in HB 1205, it basically gives any citizen in the state of Florida the power to challenge any individual petition gatherer, right? So if you have collected any amount of petitions, right, the Florida Division of Elections now will have a database, even if you're a volunteer, right? We'll have a database of everybody who has collected any amount of petitions. And this is important. We'll get more into this now. This will be post July 1st. So you're still good now. You're not in that database right now. Don't have to be in that database right now. But post July 1st, you'll have to be in this database, and they'll know how many petitions you have gathered, right? And so this will be very simple for them, right? All they have to do is look through that list and say, this one collected a lot, this one collected a lot, this one collected just enough for us to challenge their validity, right, as a petition gatherer. And even if you're 100% okay, if they do it at just the right time, right, and your petitions are no longer going to be counted towards the total amount needed to qualify for the ballot, then you've now missed that deadline. And, oh, well, try again next election, right? So it's really something very dangerous that they are doing here, where, as State Representative Dottie Joseph said, this isn't about protecting the process or making it more secure. Nothing that they're doing makes it more secure post July 1st than it is right now. Absolutely nothing. And it's only about the fact that they feel that because they won the last election cycle through lots of the games that they played with deactivating voters and purging voters and all sorts of silly, political games that they play in Tallahassee, just because they won political power in Tallahassee, that they can prevent us, the citizenry, from putting good ideas on the ballot, again, as is guaranteed by our Constitution. So these folks who have told us for decades that they are constitutionalists and they are there to protect our freedoms and protect our rights and protect your First Amendment free speech rights, are literally trampling all over them, ripping them to shreds. And in some ways, what we're actually focused on is that they're crushing them, right? They are crushing the possibility of any of these proposed amendments making them to the ballot. But again, we're going to beat them at their own game with this petition, because we're going to get enough signatures to, at the very least, get state Supreme Court review before the law goes into full effect on July 1st. And then the game is on, because if we've been validated by the state Supreme Court, we've already gotten a couple 100,000 signatures from fellow Floridians. We've got a real case to be made that a petition for a ballot initiative that would literally strike through the law that is trying to undermine this process, a judge, I believe, and we believe very strongly, would have very, very strong rationale to put a stay on this law until voters can decide on it next November. And I guarantee you that well over 60% of our fellow Floridians across party lines, when they see that they have the opportunity to protect voters' constitutional power, will vote resoundingly yes. And we will stop this game that they've got going on in Tallahassee to take away our rights and rip them away.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really awful what has been done. Florida, as many folks may know, already has very high standards in terms of what it takes to get a ballot initiative passed. We have a 60% threshold, which is higher than most places around the country. There's already a lot of rules around how the petitions are gathered and things like that. And it's true what you were saying, that these additions are just like administrative hoops to jump through. They don't really make it easier or better or the quality. And some of them are super inside baseball, like the ones that are, the petition person has to be a Florida resident, and then they have to pass a background check, and they have to do X, Y, and Z. Now, the reason that's funny is because if you've ever seen some of these big operations when it comes to petitions, you're talking about bringing people in, usually from all over the country, that come in for this kind of very short-term work, right? And sure, okay, background check, that's fine. But like making them Florida residents actually makes it very difficult to do this kind of work, because, they're usually a couple weeks of an operation. They go to this one place, they're working, all day. And it's just much easier to recruit folks that have that kind of flexibility if you're not limited to one geographic area. So that was very much like, yeah, definitely they're trying to target how these petitions are getting on the ballot. And yeah, very upsetting with all of that. And you and I were actually at a petition or a protest, right, outside of Jenna Persons-Malika's office. You had organized these protests around the state. And
More to come.
I said, hey, let me go ahead and check it out. And what was interesting is that actually garnered some counter protesters from like including a Republican state committee woman from here. And so she was like, by the way, calmer than I've ever seen her. She's like a rabid dog at school board meetings. But anyway, she was like, oh, do you know that you can still just go to your state representative and you can get it on the ballot then? And I was like, so you think that I can go to Jenna and say, hey, I want abortion rights. We're going to put that to the vote. She would be willing to do that. You know, by the way, Jenna was the 6-week abortion ban sponsor. Okay. Right. So like what recourse do I have as a resident and a citizen in the state of Florida when obviously my representative is not going to do that. Right. And so I think that's why this is such an important process that we still have, that we have this check on the government. Right.
Yeah.
And
well,
on politicians.
And here's the important thing to consider, right? Amendment 4, which was the reproductive freedom amendment on last year's ballot, got almost 60% of the vote. Now, it didn't get to the 60% threshold, but I will concede that it is a issue that there are some Republicans, even some MPs, even some Democrats that did not vote for it, right? It's one of the reasons it didn't get over 60%. But here's the thing, right? Before we filed this petition to protect the petition process, the very first amendment that I filed through the Florida Constitutional Amendment Network, which is our political action committee that sponsors these initiatives, the very first one we filed this year was to reduce insurance rates in the state of Florida, right? So when any Republican or anybody who supports HB 1205 says, well, you can just come to your state representative or your state senator and have them sponsor legislation, ask yourself why it is that when not Chris Wills, not Dr. Cindy Banyai, not any of us, the vast majority of Florida voters said very clearly in polling, in town halls, in direct messages to their state representative, their state senator, and the governor, that our top priority as Floridians this year and for many years has been find a freaking way to reduce our insurance rates and solve the housing affordability crisis.
Right.
And guess how? So that was our message to them, right?
Yeah.
So if in fact, all it takes is asking them to sponsor a bill, right? And to get it passed, then okay, we tried that. Right. We tried that. And guess how many pieces of legislation were passed this past legislative session that reduced your insurance rates by even $1? The answer is zero. So here's the thing. We have, and you know, I don't want to say it was because of this, because we know that this was already, you know, in the works post the 2024 election. They really wanted to restrict this process. But I do find it really suspect that the moment that we filed a proposed constitutional amendment to reduce insurance rates, right, that they went all in and did all they could to make sure that initiatives like that have no shot at making it to the ballot. And that's why it's so important. That's our message right now, right? If you care about reducing your insurance rates, then we need you to sign the petition to protect the petition process so we can get that other amendment on the ballot, right? We're making the petition to protect petitions our top priority right now, because if we don't succeed there, then none of the other efforts will matter, right? But if you really care, and I know that you can't go a block in Florida without coming across a dozen people that have had their insurance rates skyrocket in the last couple of years. And again, the legislature not only hasn't done anything, the little that they have done has made the situation worse.
Right. They
Right?
passed tort reform that made it harder to sue when you get screwed by your insurance company, which, by
Exactly.
the way, us here in Southwest Florida and Fort Myers had seen firsthand in the post-Hurricane Ian
Right.
era.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you told me that, we hadn't seen examples over the last couple of years of how detrimental this has been, right? But literally, they had, so beyond even just us asking for it, right? And again, not us too, right? Floridians asking for insurance reforms. They were given the the perfect justification to take action on this literally in their first week of the legislative session, when the report came out that all these insurance companies have been lying to our faces that they were broke, and that's why they needed to raise their rates. Because we found out at the beginning of legislative session that secretly they were throwing millions of dollars into shell companies on the side that were then funneling that money up to their parent companies, right?
Yep.
So they were not broke, and then they made Floridians go broke, right? So they had they had literally the perfect opportunity to turn around and say, these people lied to you, they lied to us, the insurance companies lied to you, lied to us. We're going to take action to hold them accountable and actually do some meaningful things to reduce insurance rates. And look, the proposed amendment that we have is not controversial. Like, I have yet to find one even Trump voting Republican, right? Or DeSantis supporting Republican that isn't, literally connected to their administration, right? But like just a regular voter. I have yet to find one that you tell them, hey, the reduced insurance rate amendment that is going to, the annual insurance rate amendment that's going to go on the 2026 ballot does two things. It requires that you get a minimum 4% reduction in your insurance rates if you haven't filed any claims in the last year. Common sense. The national average is 5%. Florida, for whatever reason, doesn't do it. And interesting, the Florida legislature to say that they did something, they think they passed like a 1 or 2% reduction statewide like a year or two ago, right? And did nothing, right? So this is a 4% annual reduction if you haven't filed any claims. And the second thing it says is, like the Affordable Care Act says, if you have not violated the terms of your policy, you can't get dropped, you can't get canceled, and you must be offered a renewal, right? Yes. So two really common sense things. Again, the Florida legislature, this was filed well in advance of them, going through their legislative session. They could have very easily grabbed that language, passed it, or passed a portion of it, and we would have said, awesome. I would have been the first to applaud them, right? But they're not willing to do the things that actually help you as Floridians. And that's why this constitutional amendment petition process, the citizens initiative, is so vital, because it gives us, the citizens, the power, the opportunity, and the right to talk to our fellow Floridians, get them to sign on to petitions for these good ideas that the legislature is not willing to consider because they're beholden to whatever special interest group, right? And that we, the citizens, get the signatures necessary, put it on the ballot. And guess what? Why are they so afraid of the petition process? Because just because you get something on the ballot, as was proved last year, doesn't mean it passes, right? You still have to get, in our state right now, 60% of the voters that come out in that election cycle to say, you know what? Not only did the people that signed the petition think this was a good idea, I, as a voter, over 60% of us say it's a good idea, and now it's in the Constitution. I don't understand what they're so well. I know what they're so afraid of, but it's really crazy that they're that afraid of your power, of the power of the voter in this state.
Yeah. And what you said about the special interest is super important to lift up, because the reason that there has been no action and no substantive change when it comes to the insurance rates is because insurance companies donate a lot of money to politicians. And that's why you got tort reform way before, you had reform that helped everyday consumers. That's because those folks are paying for those people. They're often writing the legislation and handing it right to them. So yeah, we don't have a voice in the same way as those big corporate donors and those political action committees do as people, except for through this one process. And that's why it's under attack. And they will never do things to upset those donors. And we need a way that when it is important to people, that we have that balance. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for this discussion. And just as we're leaving here, I will drop the links in the show notes so everybody can get this petition. But tell us a little bit about, where we can find more information, what folks need to do, how they can get involved, or what they can do to help support this initiative.
Yeah, so they can download all of our petitions, including the petition to protect the petition and the insurance reduction petition on flamendments.com. So all of our petitions are there. You're going to get to a Google form. Basically, we ask you for some basic contact information just so we can keep in contact with you and make sure you haven't had any issues getting your petition in. It's really important. You don't have to fill in all your personal information there, but it's really important you provide as much of it as possible to us, especially right now, because what one of the things we're coming across is they've actually decided that even though we don't necessarily legally agree with their interpretation, that the new window of just 10 days to turn in a petition went into effect on May 2nd. Our reading is actually that it should not have gone into effect until July 1st. They're agreeing with us that most of the other provisions do not go into effect until July 1st, but most of the supervisors of elections are implementing that 10-day window as of now. So just think through the process. You download the petition, you sign it, you put today's date on it. You probably set it on your kitchen table a day or two, then put it in the mail. It takes 3, 4, 5 days sometimes to get to us. Then, it takes us a day or two to process it. We're really close to that 10-day window. So we're, just so you guys know, like a lot of the last couple weeks and the next couple weeks going ahead, I'm literally driving the state at least once a week to make sure that petitions that are getting to us within that 10-day window, that we get them into the supervisor of elections in time, right? Because unfortunately, then they turn around and fine us if we're not turning them within those 10 days. So you can enter your information there on the Google form, whatever you're willing to provide us, and if we'll follow up with you to make sure you didn't have any issues. You can download and print the petition. Our message to folks is, don't think of I'm printing the petition for me, right? Print as many copies as you possibly can, especially the petition to protect the petitions, right? To protect voters' constitutional power, and get those to friends, family members, neighbors, coworkers. Carry a couple in your car, right? Maybe you go to an event, a neighborhood association meeting, whatever, and you can talk to folks about this and urge them to sign the petition. Until July 1st, everybody is eligible and able to do that with no problems. There are no restrictions on you to be able to do that at this point. So we're up against that deadline of July 1st when the law goes into full effect. And then once you collect as many petitions as you can, again, with not too much of a gap between the date that you signed, stick them all in an envelope. You can send them all at once and you can mail them to our P.O. box. If you are in an area like Miami-Dade, my phone number is on the website. You can text me. And if you don't want to mail them to help us with that window, we can. I'm picking up petitions from folks. I know that over in Fort Myers, you're helping to pick up petitions as well. So there are folks. We have folks helping right now in Fort Myers, which I'm super excited about. How I'm seeing that develop. We have folks in Hillsborough, in Orange County, in Duval County, Palm Beach County, Broward, Miami-Dade. That is where we're mostly focused. We even had folks up in Escambia County. We hadn't even spoken to them, and they went to drop off petitions at their supervisor of elections because the word is getting out about how important this is, and people are
I have
moving.
some friends up there.
Yeah, we're focused on those areas because we have to collect enough signatures in 14 congressional districts, and that's where really the numbers are. So we really encourage you guys to do that. Again, flamendments.com. Make as many copies as you can, get them out to as many people as you can, get them in as quickly as you can, and then help share our content. I will say, if you can chip in any amount, we're printing lots of petitions on a daily basis. Every $10 that you donate helps us to print another 100 petitions. But we also tell folks, I know, right now with the Trump tariffs, the economy's rough. So it doesn't have to be a $10 donation. If you can help us print 100 petitions, reach out to us. Our email's there, my cell phone numbers where you can text me, say, hey, I can print off 1,000 petitions for you, whatever. We'll go pick them up from you or help you get them to somewhere where those petitions can get signatures on them. So you can help in a multitude of ways. We don't have a lot of time, but I'll tell you this. The folks with some of the previous constitutional amendment petition efforts, especially last year, they were probably about 200 to 350,000 signatures down, about a month away from the deadline for last year's election cycle. And in a month, they ended up with almost, I think, 400,000 or almost 500,000 in a month, right?
Yep.
So that proves to me that if we work together and as a team, we realize how important this is, we can absolutely prove to folks that we're not just going to sit back and let them crush our constitutional rights. We can get this done. We just need everybody's help. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be ramping up in the next month because as we approach that July 1st deadline. And just to be clear, once July 1st, we're not done, right? The July 1st thing is the law's supposed to go into full effect on July 1st. Our hope is to try and put in a stay, but wherever we're at, we're not going to stop. We just have to modify how we're going about it potentially because there's going to be a new form out and all that stuff. But we do have to race. And I tell folks this is the last thing I'll say, that we all know, those of us that live in Florida, have heard the stories from folks all over the country and folks right here at home that look at what's happened in the state of Florida, no matter what your party registration is, that people look at what's happening here and say, wow, the radicals have totally taken over. There's really no hope in, real grassroots citizens efforts. And, why even get involved in the political process? Why contribute to, political campaigns there that are such a long shot? I'll tell you this, with all that narrative, especially about the Florida Democratic Party, out there, and some of it is warranted, right? Some of the narrative that's out there about us is warranted. But with all that narrative that's out there, on July 1st, if we accomplish what I know we can and what we're on the path to, I guarantee you national news outlets will take a look at what's going on here and say, wow, there's real organizing and movement in Florida. And that's because we will have beat back DeSantis's top priority in this legislative session through a grassroots citizen-led initiative, not special interests, right? You and I working together to save our constitutional rights and our democracy. That's what this is. And I hope you'll join us at flamendments.com.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much, Chris Wills. And for anybody over here in Southwest Florida, in Lee County, I just want to let you know that Big Mouth Media is partnered with Save Our Democracy, and we are helping to do door knocking, canvassing, and community events around this. We have petitions that we would love to share with you. So if you want to get involved in this effort, go ahead. You can put a comment on anything here on Big Mouth Media. You can send us an email at info@bigmouthmediafl.com. And we will get you that information. We'll get you on a team to get out there and start getting these petitions. So once again, thank you so much, Chris Wills, for taking this on, for working for the folks in the state of Florida, and for being here with us today.
It's truly an honor. And I'm looking forward to on July 1st, celebrating all together across the state.
Absolutely. So thanks so much, everybody who's been listening to us. This has been Dr. Cindy Speaks. I am your host, Dr. Cindy Banyai, right here on the Big Mouth Media Network. And I just want to take this opportunity to encourage you to go over to our Big Mouth Media Network website, bigmouthmediafl.com. Check out all the shows and articles and things that we have. We're an independent media source here in the state of Florida, so we would love to have your support. Please go over to the plans and pricing page at bigmouthmediafl.com. And once you do that, we are happy to send you all of our shows, our videos, our podcast audio, our articles right to your inbox. And we get to keep the lights on right here at Big Mouth Media. So check that out at bigmouthmediafl.com. So thanks once again, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dr. Cindy Speaks. If you'd like to learn more about her, go to cindybanyai.com or connect with her directly at vote@cindybanyai.com. We love connecting with people.